Good morning, St. Dorothy's campers, and happy Friday. My name is Chappie Steve, and as you can see by the chapel behind me, I'm up here at St. Dorothy's Rest, and I'm coming to you with this morning gathering reflection. Here's what I want to talk about. The theme, I understand, for camp this year is 2020 Vision. And that's funny, and it makes sense, and I have a couple of thoughts about what we could say about 2020 Vision, and that's what I'm going to spend my time with you this morning doing. First of all, obviously, it's the theme because this year is the year 2020, so it invites us to imagine what our vision might be for the year. But also, in case it weren't totally obvious, I don't actually have 2020 vision. I need to wear these corrective lenses so that I can see, and without these glasses, I can't see a thing. So when I think about what it means to have 2020 vision, I think it means I need help in order to have it. Like a lot of people, very few people have perfect eyesight. But I also know, because we're at camp, and because when we're at camp we talk about things other than just our corrective lenses and our vision. We talk about what it means to be in relationship with each other, what it means to have a community, what it means to share our lives. That there's a way of seeing each other, which doesn't have to do with our eyeballs, but it has to do with our hearts. We see, in a way, with our hearts. In the Bible, there's a person called Paul who wrote many letters, and in one of his letters, he invites his readers to ask that the eyes of their heart would be opened, to be able to see as God sees the good world around them, the eyes of our heart. So I want to talk this morning a little bit about the eyes of our heart. And in order to help me do that, I'm going to share a book with you. Now, this is a children's book. It's a book for young children, and it's illustrated. And you may think to yourself, I'm old enough, Chappie Steve, I can read books. I've read Harry Potter and things like that. But even if you're old enough to read Harry Potter and things like that, I want you to indulge me and just receive the words and the pictures of this book, because even as a grown-up, there's some value in attending to the stories that we tell children, and because I think it's a good book, and it explores the theme of what it might be like to see as God sees the good world around us and to see with the eyes of our heart. So, the book is called In God's Name, and I think it's backwards, which is a shame, but that's how it goes. But you're not going to have to read it, you're only going to have to look at the pictures. In God's Name, and it's written by Sandy Eisenberg Sasso, who's a rabbi, and it's illustrated by Phoebe Stone. Here we go. After God created the world, all living things on earth were given a name. The plants and the trees, the animals and the fish, and each person, young and old, had a special name. But no one knew the name for God. So each person searched for God's name. The farmer, whose skin was dark like the rich brown earth from which all things grew, called God Source of Life. The girl whose skin was as golden as the sun that turned night into day, called God Creator of Light. The man who tended sheep in the valley, called God Shepherd. The tired soldier who fought too many wars, called God Maker of Peace. The artist who carved figures from the earth's hard stone, called God My Rock. Sometimes the people who called God by different names were puzzled. They said, "Every living thing has a single name. The marigold, pansy, and lily, the oak tree, sequoia, and pine. God must have a single name that is greater and more wonderful than all other names." Each person thought his name for God was the greatest. Each person thought her name for God was the very best. The farmer who called God Source of Life said, "This is the true name for God." The girl who called God Creator of Light insisted, "This is the most splendid name for God." The shepherd, soldier, and artist believed they each had the perfect name for God. But no one listened, least of all God. And so each person kept searching for God's name. The woman who cared for the sick called God Healer. The slave who was freed from bondage called God Redeemer. The grandfather whose hair was white with years called God Ancient One. The grandmother who was bent with age and sorrow called God Comforter. The young woman who nursed her newborn son called God Mother. The young man who held the hand of his baby daughter called God Father. And the child who was lonely called God Friend. All the people called God by different names. They tried to tell one another that their name was the best, the only name for God, and that all other names were wrong. But no one listened, least of all God. And so each person kept searching for God's name. Then one day, the person who called God Ancient One, and the one who called God Friend, and the one who called God Mother, and the one who called God Father, all the people who called God by a different name came together. They knelt by a lake that was clear and quiet like a mirror, God's mirror. Then each person who had a name for God looked at the others who had a different name. They looked into God's mirror and saw their own faces and the faces of all the others. And they called out their names for God: Source of Life, Creator of Light, Shepherd, Maker of Peace, my Rock, Healer, Redeemer, Ancient One, Comforter, Mother, Father, Friend, all at the same time. At that moment, the people knew that all the names for God were good, and no name was better than another. Then all at once their voices came together, and they called God One. Everyone listened, most of all God. The end. So maybe as you go about your day today, and you notice that in the world there are all different kinds of people and all different kinds of things. And even in all of their differences, somehow we all share one life. And maybe the oneness of that life is not diminished or damaged or compromised by the differences between us and between all the things of the world. And maybe the differences between us and between all the things of the world don't diminish or compromise or change the oneness of the life that we have and the goodness of that life and of the God who gave it to us. So that's what I wanted to say about 2020 vision and seeing with the eyes of our heart. And I hope that the eyes of your heart are open today to see the world as God sees the world, and to see yourselves as God sees you, beloved children, all one family. Happy Friday.